Mark here, and welcome back to another episode of On the Timeline. It's the show where we break down the editing of our recent short films. This episode, we're looking at the editing of Alle Grappies op Stokkie, or All Jokes Aside. And if you haven't checked it out yet, you should probably go do it, because there's going to be big spoilers ahead. So yeah, let's get on the timeline. So here we are on the timeline. So jumping in here. Cool, and then there's this long unbroken shot at the beginning to the intro and the title. This is a good example to show that you should just adjust your plan going into it. I mentioned this in another episode. Obviously, go in with a plan, have a plan of the way you're going to shoot it is obviously going to dictate the way it's edited, and that should all be decided upon in pre-production throughout so that there's a unified, cohesive sort of edit. But be willing to sort of check that out if something better emerges. So originally, this was going to be edited a lot differently. The characters were going to come in and then we're going to see close-up shots of their hands and all of that. But this take that we got was just so brilliant and so powerful and such a good entry into just observing this couple picking up this doghouse, and you can see the dynamic between them already emerging. And I feel like I didn't want to break it because we start off watching and then the rest of the film goes into more subjective point of view. It's really playing around with that sort of watching versus being a part of the character's journey, and if something better emerges, go with that.
Jy het die res van die hondekos ontslaag geraak as ek jou gevra het.
Nee, jy het ooit vir my gesê ek moet nie.
Ek het nie waardeer gister teen jou maar gepraat daaroor om vir Franswyk te vervang nie.
Weet jy, hier is nogal bietjie pynlik om te dra.
So in this sequence here, I wanted to start off with the wides again. We were watching this behavior and we're starting to get to know the characters. That thing of observation versus cutting in closer up as we're getting to know the characters. Carrying this big doghouse, you have to see the absurdity of it. There's these really good sort of gates and it looks like they're almost like locked in this relationship, and think about those things and how you can use them in the editing. And just on the dialogue here, when you've got shots of back and forth of a dialogue scene, the most important thing I was paying attention to when I was cutting this is you want to think about what shot you're on when a line is delivered. You don't necessarily have to be on this person as they're speaking and then another person speaks and you cut to them and then you cut back when another person's speaking. That really is softening what can be done with editing. You want to think about the impact of the line, and perhaps you want to play a line of another character on the shot of the person who is listening to that line to show the impact of that line. And really it was just about deciding when to cut to the other person, because they can't see each other as they're moving. That's like part of the scene, and that the fact that they're carrying this big doghouse, of their deceased dog, of their carrying the heft of their relationship, so to speak. So you want to decide what shot you want to be on to get the most impact out of the dialogue.
Is jy okay?
Ja,
Jy weet dit 'n grapie nie.
wat was?
Toe maar.
So right there's just a sort of subtle thing of she's asking, that was a joke, right? And then because they're not on the same page, because he didn't hear her, because it's sort of indicative of the relationship, to have a relationship where they kind of tease and mock one another, but then they don't really talk about what's important, then the two shot is when she asks, is this a joke? And then he's like, in a single, what was? And then she says, never mind. To show that misunderstanding, they're not going to be in the same shot when that misunderstanding happens, so it makes sense to cut from a single to a single. There's a reason behind every cut. So moving forward here, this sequence.
Hoorie, sy tannie nie dood aan emfyseem nie. Huh?
Again, that disagreement between them, that misunderstanding, it's a joke too far that he's taken. When you return back to a shot, it's building on when we've previously seen that shot. Almost like a theme in a story is we sort of set it up and then we see how the theme changes, and then we come back to certain elements in the film that were shown prior, and we've seen how they've changed or not changed. This editing here really came from how I wanted to shoot it in pre-production. How we did end up shooting it is I wanted to have shots on the inside of the character here and on the outside of the character here, so we can show when they're looking forward, the expression on their face is that their partner can't see because they're literally facing the opposite direction. A note I wanted to make is we did shoot shots on Willie's side of exactly the same thing. We had a shot like that mirroring that, and we took a shot that was mirroring that. But that's a really good note about shot selection. It's not just all about the cuts, it's what shots you use when, or conversely what shots not to use. You might shoot something that might even be great, like Wenzel's performances in these moments on his shots were very good. Of course, he's a brilliant actor, but in the edit it didn't really feel right to cut to him in these moments. It felt like Angie's moment, you know. It might also help with the pacing. You don't actually have to have that shot, and your film is a lot better for it. Here's a good example of just holding on a shot. In a video called How Does an Editor Think and Feel by Tony Cho, or Every Frame a Painting, he talks about how emotions take time, and the amount of time you hold on a shot, the emotion might change to something else. People aren't robots. They aren't going to be able to take in emotion if it's just cut like this. Obviously, sometimes, depending on the genre, depending on the scenario, depending on whatever it might be, it might necessitate that. But for something like this, where we really want to get into the interiority of Angie and what she might be going through, we just needed to sit on this shot. And then we cut out, and then Willie's sort of observing her. Maybe for the first time, he's trying to sort of see what's going on. And then we cut in closer to the sort of interiority, and we hold on her vice, the cigarettes that she smokes, and we break that. Also with the music that Alex composed beautifully, emphasizing those beats. Originally, this scene in the kitchen, it wasn't meant to be in the kitchen, it was meant to be outside, but you can see in the BTS, we had to move it inside because we were afraid that it was going to start raining again. And because of this, we decided that obviously the film was always planned to be shot entirely handheld, because I didn't really want much sort of artifice in the construction of it. I really wanted it to sort of just feel like we were there with the characters. Because we didn't have much time to shoot the kitchen scene, we decided to just shoot really long takes. With that, it really became just finding those moments. And you may think that, oh, I've got these sort of roaming close-ups, I don't have sort of coverage, I suppose. But really it becomes just cherry-picking those moments. And you find that even with sort of 2 or 3 shots of a roaming close-up, maybe some other coverage and stuff, how much material you actually still have, especially with such brilliant performances. You're really able to figure out what character I want to be and when, and just the power of that simplicity of the cut and what shot I'm on and what character I'm on and what line I'm on when. As I was saying earlier in the scene where they're carrying the doghouse, it's about where we are, when, what line we're on, and what is the performance giving to the other performer. So just jumping along in the scene here.
Jy's 'n sad clown, Willie. Jy's 'n absolute cliché.
Nou weet jy wat? Dan beteken dit minstens ons is albei sleg in ons werk.
Dink jy dis waaroor dit gaan?
Hoekom moet ons ewen 'n ander hondehok kry? Ons kan mos net 'n ander hond kry.
So here again, there's that thing where there's this quiet moment and they're not facing one another. It's sort of mirroring what we were seeing earlier when they were carrying the doghouse and they couldn't see one another. So I laid this reaction on top before she slams and turns around on the cut. And really the scene sort of shifts again and the truth is starting to come out and the camera becomes more kinetic naturally as we were roaming with the characters, and you really want to look for those moments, you know.
Ons kan mos net 'n ander hond.
As he becomes louder, we get this great camera move that Louise did as we moved up to him. We get a sort of lower angle. If you have roaming close-ups, shots where you're sort of finding moments, you also want to look at the movement of the camera and what that says about the dynamics between the characters and how you can use that most effectively in the edit. Obviously here, she's not looking at him. I can't see you anymore, Willie. The shot selection mirrors what we were saying earlier. It would be less powerful, for example, if we were on the wide at this moment. Shot selection is really, really key. I can't see you anymore, and then obviously this is the most effective shot to cut to because, you know, he's isolated, he's in his own world. It would be less effective to cut to his close-up, for example, here, in response to that line. So you want to think about what the shot selection
Ek kan jou nie meer sien nie, Willie.
says about the dynamics of the characters in terms of how you edit them together and what shot size goes next to the other shot size. Obviously,
Jy weet,
as the truth comes out, we want to be on that close-up.
soos asof my brein homself verteer.
And then we want to see the effect of that. He's not even looking at her. And we want to be in close-up for that, to be like, really? You're really not looking? You know what I mean? But he's starting to sort of internalize it, but he doesn't know what to feel. So we really want to be on that close-up for that moment. And as she walks away, he's just realized that he's been ignoring his partner and what she's been going through for so long. And then, as I said about holding on a shot for this end shot here before we cut to black, it's almost too long. This isn't going to be over quickly for him, for his flaws that he has to sort of still overcome. The film doesn't end in a sort of neat bow, so we hold on it. We hold in the discomfort intentionally. And that's it for this episode of On the Timeline. I hope you liked it. If you did, then maybe consider giving this video a like. And also, if you have any questions for us, leave them in the comments below. We try and respond to all of them. Also, maybe consider subscribing to the channel. And when you've done that, then hit that bell so you're notified as soon as we put out any new videos, which is every Tuesday and Friday, with the new short film on the first Friday of every month. So until next time, go out there, stay safe, and make your movie.